everyone, and welcome to Worth the Calories. I'm Matthew Vose.
And I'm Cathryn Vose.
And I am Mandi Kay.
This week, so we're here to talk about the technical challenge from last week, the garlic ghee-covered naan bread, made with baking powder instead of yeast. For full disclosure, so there's some travelling going on in the Vose household. We will not be able to get up an episode recap during the week, so we're hoping to get one out probably Sunday or Monday. It might be that we actually do double duty next week, so all the things to discuss. Please don't spoil it. Please. I mean, spoil it if you want, you know, it's only cakes. So what we're actually going to talk about today is the naan, because this week we all made naan bread.
Naan.
Last week, la gato vert, it was just me, because you're both cowards.
Spinach.
Pistachios are gross.
Yeah. Just too much green.
Yeah.
But the concept of some nice doughy bread that takes an hour, we were all on board for that.
I loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I love naan anyway, but I really enjoyed doing the naan bread as well.
Go on, why so?
Because I can see a practical use for that recipe in my life in a way that I cannot see spinachy pistachio greenness in my life.
Or blooming wagon wheels.
Or wagon wheels, yeah.
I have a question.
Go on.
Did you guys stick to the hour time limit on this one?
Hard to tell, to be honest.
Probably in total, yes. But there was also like an hour and a half in the middle of there where Mandi, you and I talked about Desperately Seeking Susan for a long time.
Right. Okay.
Because we did it a little bit in a sort of slightly disjointed fashion. So we each separately made the dough, but we decided that 500 grams of ghee in one household was probably too much. So we combined forces on the ghee making.
Good call. Good call.
I did butter skimming.
Yes.
Cathryn did garlic crushing.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we grilled together.
Okay.
No.
As happily married couples do, yeah. Mandi, how about you? How did the timing go on it?
See, I didn't know what the time limit was on the challenge because I don't watch the show until after I've done the challenge. And so when I looked at the recipe and I had completed it, I think I was in the kitchen for 2 hours, but I was also making soup at the same time.
Right.
So I was doing two things at once. And I looked at the recipe and I was like, okay, so they're probably going to give them maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if they're being like super generous. Mm-hmm. And I was astonished whenever it was only an hour in the episode.
Yeah.
I doubt in the episode that they all proved that dough for the 30 minutes that it told us to in the recipe that you can get online.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because you got all that time making the ghee. So it takes 10, 20 minutes to make the dough.
Yeah.
And then you let it rest. Because I don't think it was necessarily proving.
No,
because that was the point. It doesn't have
out.
yeast to activate and make all the gas and make it grow. Bread is weird. So I think it was just literally letting it rest and letting the glutens set.
I'm not sure about set form. The gluten strands form. I don't know.
I was needing it to stretch the glutens.
Let the magic work. I don't know. Mandi, do you have any more technical knowledge on this? We're just making stuff up.
I started Googling after I had let it rest for 30 minutes, and I was like, this is bread dough. Bread dough is supposed to rise. Mine didn't rise. Did I do something wrong? And then I started Googling, and I realized all of the recipes for naan that I could find had yeast in them, so of course they all doubled in size. And so then I was trying to figure out, well, this doesn't have yeast, but it does have yogurt and sugar and baking powder, so were those things supposed to make it rise? And I was convinced I had done something wrong, especially because I substituted Greek yogurt for natural yogurt.
Oh, so did we. Was it supposed to be
No,
Greek
we didn't.
yogurt? No? Oh.
I used Greek.
It was supposed to be natural. We used natural.
That makes sense. Okay.
So I was
I'm not
convinced
sure what
that
the
I had done it
difference is.
wrong and that it was supposed to rise.
Right. Mine didn't rise.
No.
Okay,
I don't think
good.
mine did. Yeah.
And I don't think they rose on the telly either. But then, to be honest, I don't think anyone really
No.
focused on that.
Mandi, question about naan bread. Do you have naan bread? Is it a delicacy over there? Is it something you have with a takeaway or an Indian?
Well, Indian takeaway is not as pervasive here, but naan bread is, I can buy it in the grocery store. And I do frequently just to eat with the cucumber sauce. Delicious.
Ah, nice.
So
Cucumber
I was
sauce.
excited
Raita?
about this. Yeah, it's either
okay.
raita or I guess the Greek version is tzatziki.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
It's delicious. So I was
Okay.
excited about garlicky goodness in naan bread.
Because it is absolutely a staple over here.
Okay.
So it's not even a question of when you have it and who's had it or not. Yeah.
Although I think significantly more oily when we get it from the takeaway than what we produced last night.
I think that the butter is probably less purified than we had it. Maybe. Let's talk about the process. We'll come to butter and ghee and skimming and all sorts in a minute. Putting it together was fine, It's some wet stuff and some dry stuff.
Yeah.
The actual process of the dough forming was okay, I think.
Yeah.
It probably works better when you don't misread the recipe and put equal amounts of milk and yogurt in your thing. And then realize it and try to frantically use a slotted spoon to get the yogurt out that hasn't fully whisked in.
Because it was 200 mils milk, 100 mils yogurt, wasn't it?
Yes.
I don't think it would have been
I
a
suspect
disaster.
it would have been fine, yeah.
You might have just had to toss a bit more flour in there to soak up the extra bit of liquid.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think I got enough out because it ended up working. I mean,
Nice.
it formed a nice solid dough when I was done with it.
Yeah, so there's then that bit when you're forming it, and I did put a picture up on Instagram and Twitter because I felt like the Venom symbiote was taking me over. As I was putting this together, it just was covering my hands in giant clumps. I wasn't sure where I started and the dough began.
It was a very wet dough, and I'm wondering, Mandy, if your use of Greek yogurt might have been slightly better because it might have been slightly less liquidy. Because I know certainly I found that a very gloopy right hand experience. So it was like, I was very glad that the recipe said just mix it with one hand.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, okay, this is good. Because I've got the other hand to try and rescue myself from the doughy gloop.
Yeah. Open up my iPad again, see what the rest of the recipe is.
Exactly.
Mandy, which hand did you use?
I used my right hand.
Yeah, we're all right.
I'm right-handed. It did get very, very sticky to start with, but as soon as I had it mixed together enough to turn it out on the counter to start kneading it, it very quickly turned into a nice dough.
Okay, so the kneading, that first thing, it has a comment of on a lightly oiled worktop. Did you use oil or flour?
I did use oil.
Okay. Cathryn?
I used flour because I saw what mess you... I heard about the mess you made and I was like, that Terry chap who won, he used flour.
Yeah. It was just forming again like the symbiote with the worktop. I was losing half my dough as I was trying to do it.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up just having to form it into a ball and run with it because it was soaking in the oil and then sticking to the dry worktop anyway.
Oh, I see.
That bit did not go so well. I was less impressed with that sequence.
It worked quite well with flour.
Oh, good. I'm glad, yeah.
I wonder if because mine was thicker than yours, then that's why it worked better for me. Because it did work very well.
I'd be keen to try it with Greek yogurt next time.
But putting it in the bowl with a bit of oil, that clearly helped. Because it came out really easily on mine.
Yes, whereas mine stuck to its bowl a bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So forming the dough, actually not too difficult. However, we had all the instructions on the technical challenge. They actually showed us the instructions they got, and it did say, mix the dough, rest the dough.
Just rest it.
Yeah. It was
Don't
just
touch it for like 30 seconds. It's rested.
Yeah, there was no instruction on like how to mix it, quantities of things. It was just make a dough.
Yeah. Wow. Bit harsh.
Yeah.
Bit harsh.
And then it comes to making the ghee. So melting down a lot of butter. How many sticks of butter is that?
It was just over 2 sticks of butter for me.
Okay. So it's one block over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they told us to make too much ghee because we hardly used any of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have a huge jar of it left over.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've stuck it in the top or in the freezer. We're going to see what happens. I suspect not very nice things.
Yeah, because we were both making it, and of course, the pair of us were not going to eat 16 naan bread last night. We're doing a bit of a freezing experiment. So we've frozen some of the dough without baking the naans first, and we've frozen a couple of the baked naan breads because I'm quite keen to see how how it freezes, because if it does freeze well, I can see me making the dough and then freezing it in segments and then thawing it out and just, baking up a naan of a Wednesday evening.
Right.
This is the theory. This is my vision of my culinary skills. Of course, what will happen is I'll forget to take it out, or I'll thaw it and it'll be an absolute disaster. But in my dream version of my life, we could have homemade naans on a Wednesday.
In 2025, when we move out, we clear out the freezer and go, what was this?
Like all of that frozen vegetables.
Yeah, exactly. The skimming was a bit weird. Loads of foam came to the very top at the very beginning, and then it sort of seemed to think about it for a very long time, and then a bit came at the end. Did you do the whole skimming and purifying of the butter, Mandy?
I did. I forgot about it for a little bit, though, so it probably sat bubbling for 5 or 10 minutes when I forgot it was on the stove. So when I ran back to it, there wasn't a ton of foam on the top. So I got off what was on the top at that point, and then just little tiny bits started to come up, and then it would just kind of sit there. And I could see it under the surface, like it wanted to come up. And it didn't. I mean, I guess it eventually did. But I think straining it is really what got all of the foam out for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because, I had lots that was sat on the bottom that just never rose, so that when I poured it out, I was able to pour it very slowly and it stayed in the pan. So, fine. Cool. Mixing in the garlic was fine.
My hands still smell like garlic 2 days later, just so you know.
Yeah,
I've washed my hands repeatedly. Showered a couple times too.
I hate that garlicky finger thing. Matthew put me on garlic duty, seeing as he'd been on skimming duty, but I used a garlic crusher instead because I just can't bear the garlicky fingers after chopping my garlic up.
Yeah, I don't own a garlic crusher. And I was afraid I
Mandy's
have
Christmas present.
I have a very fine grater or planer, but that usually turns it into a paste, and I thought that would be too overpowering for this. Yeah. And so I diligently chopped it, and I chopped a lot because I also had to chop garlic for my soup. So there were like probably 9 cloves of garlic that got chopped.
I'm proud of you, Mandi. That's a lot of garlic.
Yes. There's a reason I still smell like garlic 2 days later.
Garlic.
And then it's rolling out the dough again, chopping it up, rolling it out, grilling it. I think we'd seen on the episode that one of the big things for everyone was making sure the grill was very hot and the pan under the grill was very hot. Mandi, how did the grilling go for someone who hadn't seen it?
Well, I did follow the instructions, and I mean, so we in our ovens we don't call them grills; it's the broiler.
Okay.
And so I turned it on high. We have high or low. That's it. We don't get to set a temperature for it. So I turned it on high. I put the pan in there 5 or 10 minutes before, so it would be very, very hot.
Yep.
And I raised the oven rack to the top so that it would be as close as possible, and that worked really well for the first one. But the second one decided that it was going to like bubble up ridiculously high. And so it ended up touching the heat coil.
Oh, okay.
So that happened on 2 of them. And then I was like, well, this is turning into a pattern now. So then I lowered the pan, and then it took longer to cook them. So it was kind of bizarre, and none of them did the same thing. And so that was another reason why I thought maybe I had done my dough wrong.
No, I don't think so. They look great. It looks like you were a lot braver at making them bigger and thinner than we were when rolling them out. I think both Matthew and I, ours were a bit smaller and maybe a bit thicker when we put them under the grill. Yeah,
because there was definitely one that ended up very thin because it stuck to the top and I was trying to peel it off with one hand. But even that ended up quite thick once it had cooked. So like the actual grilling of them really made them thicken up. And I think knowing that now, I would have rolled them out even thinner and bigger.
Yeah.
And probably rolled them out and then just transferred them straight to the pan rather than rolling 8 out and then transferring them and letting them sit there and stick to the surface. Yeah, definitely would have done that. How did they taste? So yeah, Mandi, so yours were bigger. Did you get some crispy bits and doughy bits?
Sort of. Do you remember, I don't remember whose they were in the episode, but when Paul was tasting them and he tore it apart, he compared it to pita. because the whole thing had bubbled up, and so it had like a pocket in it.
Yeah.
Most of mine were like that.
Right.
It was really strange. And mine were very, very thin. So they, apart from the thin layer puffing up, the rest of it stayed very, very thin. And so they weren't as almost doughy or fluffy as I would have wanted them to be.
Okay.
So I would probably try to do them slightly differently if I made it again, because they weren't as good as they are if you go to a restaurant and get them.
Okay.
I mean, they weren't bad, but they weren't great. Essentially, without the garlic ghee on them, they probably wouldn't have had much of a taste other than flour from where I rolled them out on the floured surface.
Yeah. But I don't think they're supposed to have much of a taste.
No.
I don't know. I see them as a background.
It's an accompaniment, yeah.
A background sort of base.
Yeah.
But
I think the coriander helped, gave it something to go on.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely had put more salt in mine.
Yeah, I need to put more salt in it.
Actually taste the salt, and it sort of helped a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I didn't have coriander. I went with just what we had in the house because it was hurricane weekend here, so I wasn't going to go back out to the store. So I just had the garlic, but I was fine with that because I love garlic. And then just before I served them, because they had all of the glistening butter on top, I did sprinkle salt on all of them to give them a brighter flavor than just flour that's been cooked, essentially.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, we ordered a curry. And had them with the takeaway when it arrived.
Nice.
Well, you know, if you're making naan.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping the freezing experiment works.
Yeah.
I hope so too. I can't wait to find out how that turns out for you. So how long are you going to leave it frozen before you try?
I might give it a go. So obviously we're away this coming week, but I'll probably give it a go one of the evenings the following week.
Okay.
Yeah. I might make... either make a curry or make a soup or something that we can use to eat with the naan.
Nice.
So Wagon Wheels had maybe a couple of components we might use elsewhere, and we were pleased to have tried. Legato there
spinach
was a pain, and I'm never touching anything that's green again. What do we think about it? Will we do this recipe again? We're going to try actual yeast-based naan again. What are everyone's opinions of it?
Both.
Yeah?
I'd happily do this recipe. Well, especially if the freezing things works.
The freezing of the ghee, if that works, because that's a big part of it, and the time, almost the most time-consuming part.
But I am interested in doing more yeast baking.
Okay.
Full stop. So.
Nice.
I would like to try a yeast recipe because I think using the yeast would give me the texture that I wanted.
Right.
That I didn't get in this one. But this recipe was very easy. The hardest part was the ghee.
Yeah. I genuinely don't think I'd bothered with the ghee again. I think I would just
spread some butter on it.
Spread some butter on it.
On top.
Or just go, hey, look, I'm eating this with a really oily, strong flavoured curry anyway. Why would I want to put more oil on the bread anyhow?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think our ghee probably could have been more garlicky. I think it was very buttery with some garlic.
Okay.
Maybe my timid garlic crushing was not as effective as Mandi's 9 clothes of sliced goodness.
Needs another bulb.
Yeah.
Okay, all 9 did not go in the ghee. Some of it went in the soup.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It was good though. I think as far as technical challenges go, I'm surprised this was one that they picked. But watching them make it, I guess it does require a knowledge of what naan even is. Some of them had no idea what it is. They didn't know what shape to make it. And so if you're just testing general knowledge, it works.
Yeah. And I think that whole thing of just telling them just to make a dough. Like, I mean, I'd have gone, have no idea what's going on here now.
Yeah.
Whereas actually with more instructions, it was dead easy. But the limited instructions that they got given would only work for a decent baker.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah, I think if they had just handed me those ingredients and said make a dough, I would have horribly failed.
Yeah, me too. Complete disaster.
I think also it's a nice come down from last week's Legato Vert, which was just so... I think they got mostly similar instructions to what we got, because it was so detailed and so complex.
Do you think there's also an aspect of managing the editing team's time? Because they will have had 5 hours worth of filming from that enormous bread challenge on the Sunday. So giving them only an hour's worth of filming to edit for the technical challenge might sort of balance out the amount of time the production team needed for the episode.
Are they looking for 10 hours over the weekend? So it has to be broken up across the 3 differently.
Dunno.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Interesting. Good point. So next week is desserts. Which could be an interesting one. It looked like it was going to be possibly a moulded trifle, something on those lines. Does that mean anything to you, Mandy? Moulded trifle?
It does. That actually makes me feel better because when I saw the previews for next week, my first thought was Jell-O mold, and I was like, I don't want to make a Jell-O mold.
It's not all that technical. Yeah. I must say, it's the jelly aspect of trifle that I'm the least. That's my least favourite. I'm not a big fan of jelly.
I think the actual. Obviously, I don't know what the challenge is. I think it might be down to the timing. That when you're under pressure and you've got to make a layer, set a layer, make a letter, set a layer, that's going to be the difficult bit. Whereas, like, just making a trifle is like, fine, you make a layer every half day.
Now, you guys are away next weekend, right?
Yes.
Yeah, not back till the Sunday.
So you guys aren't going to get to bake next weekend either.
No, so we will have a look at what it is and maybe do 2 during the week. Maybe I'll do 1, you do the other. Maybe, possibly. We'll see what's after that.
All on you, Mandy.
All on me. I mean, Matthew's the only one who did the spinach cake, so maybe I am the only one who does the trifle. I will do it, even if it is made out of ingredients that I hate.
Oh, bless you.
Perhaps this is the week to get some of our friends to do one, and we go and visit them and taste it and talk about it. Okay, so we will be back next week. We'll definitely do an episode recap for the week after. Like I said, we'll probably either release a short one for the desserts week, or we will do double duty and cover both at once. Join us again on Worth the Calories for that, and keep an eye on Instagram.com/eloquentgushing. We're putting up pictures of the bakes as we're doing them, so you'll see some of our attempts, some of our sticky fingers and sets of ingredients and things as they go horribly wrong. We will see you next week. I don't have an outro yet, do I? Really must come up with something.